okay? And let's give them the respect that they deserve for coming. And I'm going to ask Mr. Mentone or Officer Yeager to introduce our speaker.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for allowing us into your classroom today. And like previous classes that we had done this, I would ask that if you have any questions, to please ask them. Jason Martino has a really wonderful story to share with you in the sense that we hope that it will impact you. I would like to introduce Mr. Joe Martino, and then he can bring it up.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having us back once again. Privilege and an honor to be here. It's always special to come here because every time we come, we've had some tremendous conversations and an opportunity to touch the hearts and minds of our students, and it's a privilege to be here. Today, Jason Martino is a personal friend of mine. He's going to share with you his life story, give testimony, help to make a difference here in your life. We're not sure what's happening in your life, but hopefully Jason can make a difference for you today. We have a short window of opportunity, so please, pay attention, ask questions. It's an interactive kind of a situation. It's not a lecture. So if you feel you have a question or two, feel free to ask Jason. So with that, I just want to introduce Jason. And thank you again, Jason, for coming in today.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? You guys are all right? Everybody live? All right. Peachy, I'll take Peachy. You're actually doing better than me. I just got out of the hospital 2 days ago with pneumonia, so bear with me if I can. If I'm a little foggy or maybe a little bit disoriented as far as my story goes. But the reason I'm here today is I was how can I explain this? I've had a lot of challenges in my life. I know this is a demographic of kids here who are maybe going through some things in family, homes, whatever, school, maybe. I can honestly say that I didn't even have a lot of that going on as a kid, but I was a pretty normal kid growing up. I'm going to give a brief story of basically, where I came from, what I've done, where some poor decisions have led me throughout my life, and then we'll ask questions. You guys can stop me at any time you like. If there's something that I strike on that maybe you want to comment on, I suggest that please stop me while the idea's fresh in your head. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm 43 years old currently today. I work with these guys here trying to maybe help some kids maybe not make some of the poor decisions I made growing up throughout my life. I was a pretty normal kid growing up. I grew up in a suburban area of Philadelphia. Probably similar demographics up here. I wasn't in the urban part of Philadelphia. Grew up in a single home, on a larger plot of land as opposed to like some of the row homes maybe you guys are used to seeing in Philadelphia. Was a fairly normal kid most of my life till about 8th grade. Very athletic. Did a lot of things as far as sports go. I was a national championship speed skater. I did wrestling. I played all kinds of sports throughout school and whatnot. Got into high school. High school was where the fun and the games begins. This is where you kind of try to either find yourself or lose yourself. I did a little bit of both. I got introduced, to drinking and the drug scene, smoking pot. Probably like a lot of kids do. I'm sure some of you guys have experimented with some of those things in that and whatnot. Trouble with parents, trouble in school a little bit. When I was a kid. But I was always a good student on top of that, so I was kind of a little bit of best of both worlds. Went through high school. Actually got kicked out of my first high school. That was invited to come back, and I did graduate. My parents pretty much forced me into getting myself together. It was either get yourself together or get out type of thing. And those were, that was how I basically was disciplined with school. Went to college. Graduated college in 1994 from Temple University with a degree in business management. Worked in a variety of different environments. Most of my background was in corporate America. I worked for some of the larger companies in the country, such as Fridays International, Darden Industries, which is probably more of those of Olive Garden. Most of my background is in restaurant management. I worked for a company called MRG that would be familiar with like Bennigan's, Bonanza, Ponderosa, those restaurants that were around. And it was very successful. Also did a lot of partying throughout those years, without a doubt. And this is the area I kind of want to focus on, because a lot of us at your age will get into partying and thinking it's fun and whatnot. And you know, there comes a time for some of us, and there's no formula that I can give to anybody in this room that'll say you're going to be the one that's going to turn into what I did. This is where my story starts to go a little crazy, you should say. You know. So I partied for years, drinking, smoking pot. I did a lot of cocaine. I tried every drug probably under the sun out there. My heart definitely fell with alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine, and probably all three of them together. And I did that probably successfully for, I would say, 20 years. I shouldn't say successfully, I should say functionally. Probably be a better way of putting that. I was a functional addict. I mean, a lot of money. I had six-figure incomes with a lot of my jobs. Nobody knew at my job what I was doing in my outside life. I kind of lived a dual life, which is something that a lot of us will start to do, you know, around this age, which is where the problems come in. We hide things from our parents, and then we start to hide so much that we become so accustomed to leading that dual life that we just, you know, we get into that rut, and then sooner or later, one life's going to take out the other, and that's where I went ahead with, you know, with my story. So I bounced around the country a little bit. I lived in Texas. I lived in Dallas for 8 years. That's where I was probably most successful in the restaurant business. If anybody knows Dallas, it's the restaurant capital of the country. There's more restaurant jobs in that area than anywhere else. Most of the largest corporations in the country are all based down there, like Fridays International for TGI Fridays, Darden's down there, MRG, which was like Columbia was taking ale. So I moved where I could do best with my job. Was down there for 8 years until like the early 2000s. That was when my addiction, which I didn't even know at the time was an addiction. I thought I was, you know, still just that happy-go-lucky, successful partying guy. Started to take its toll. Started taking its toll slowly in ways such as like in relationships, with family, with friends, with significant others. You know, started really probably blowing up a female relationship every other year, as opposed to, you know, somebody who's looking to get married. I was definitely not looking to get married. As soon as I heard the word married, I was like, gotta go. You know, one of those kind of things. But from that point on, I came back to Philadelphia. My mom had gotten real sick, and I was getting sicker as well. My drug addiction and drinking were starting to take a toll. I started missing work here and there, changing jobs more frequently. And then in 2003, I got married. 2005, I got married. And then in 2008, I discovered how to freebase cocaine. If anybody knows that, you guys probably know more familiar with it as crack. My era, when I was back there, we called it freebasing. So that was when my life started to take an extreme nosedive. At the time, I was working for, I actually got out of the restaurant business and went into the mortgage business. I was working for a company called H&R Block Mortgage. H&R Block, you're probably familiar with the tax industry. It's one of the largest tax companies out there. Back then, H&R Block had a mortgage division, which is no longer. It collapsed in the big banking collapse of 2008. Well, anyway, when I started smoking cocaine, at the time I was top of my life. I just had a beautiful home built up here in Holland, in central Bucks County. Married a beautiful girl. Everything was going good. I had making nearly $200,000 a year, and here I am smoking crack. You know, and then literally within 18 months of my first hit, I was homeless in the streets of West Philly. Lost my home, lost my job, lost cars, wife. You know, several $100,000 in savings. And it was one of those things where you look back and going, you don't even know how this debacle starts. Like it's just something that just spirals out of control. And I stress to you this because I mean, partying at one point, like partying at this age is always fun because you're kind of under the umbrella of your parents. You know, you have that support system. You really don't got to worry about whatever money you got is pretty much yours to spend or whatnot. And and this is the point I want to stress is that you're never going to know when the party is over, let's put it that way. The party will be over when you start to lose things, you know, such as your family and your friends and whatnot, and you'll be in denial about that for a long period of time. And that's where I was. And I say this, it's not just me, but every addict that I come in contact with, which is quite a few. I work with addicts. I'm actually in school now for behavioral health, which is basically become a counselor for people with addiction. So, and I'm constantly around addicts. I go to AA meetings, NE meetings. If any of you are familiar with those are outside help sources that are free, that you can obtain support and whatnot from for drug addiction. And I'm not saying that anybody in here is a drug addict, will be a drug addict. But I can pretty much say statistically, somebody in here will fall into that rut at some point in their life. Possibly will die from that. I can say for my circle of friends, say my 10 closest friends, 7 of them are dead from drug addiction. In one form or another, whether it be suicide, a drug overdose, a drug driving accident, or whatnot. There's only 3 of us that are from my close circle of friends that are still alive, including myself. And there's been many instances that I've been through that I shouldn't even be here. I've overdosed twice. I've had 2 heart attacks, 2 suicide attempts. One left me in a coma for 3 weeks, which they said I would never walk out of the hospital from all the drugs I had taken for that overdose. And I literally, I was in stage 4 liver failure, so my eyeballs look like lemons. That's how, if anybody knows, you get jaundice when your liver starts to fail. So, but like I said, I can't stress the fact is that you won't see it coming until it's too late. I've never seen anybody say, hey, I want to be an addict, or I'm going to be an addict someday. Nobody ever says that. I was a normal kid growing up. I said I worked in corporate America. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. I just the partying will just progress, and it's not with everybody. That's what's sad about this whole thing is you don't know who you are. I said until the damage is already done, and that's where the message is coming in today. And let me see. So we're back around 2008. I said I'd already lost everything. I was now living in a room in West Philly above the L for $100 a week, doing drugs like out of my mind. 2 overdoses came within the next 2 years. In 2011, I had a heart attack. 2012, I had my second heart attack. And then I literally left the hospital after that second heart attack. I went what's called AMA, against medical advice. I walked out of the hospital probably 3 days after the heart attack, and I still had a couple $1,000 of money left, and I went out. Went right back at it. At that point, I'd come into a large, I came to like about $10,000 cash. I sold my car, and this is when things got real bad. I didn't think they'd get any worse, but you would think after a suicide attempt, possibly dying and whatnot, that things couldn't get any worse. Well, they were getting ready to get a lot worse. I went out, after I went through that money, I went on a pretty heavy drug run. I was drinking probably in the neighborhood of a 1/5 to a 1/2 gallon of vodka every day for about a 45-day run, along with smoking probably about a 1/4 ounce of cocaine a day, along that. I went into what's called cocaine psychosis. If anybody knows what that is. It's basically where you are just literally, you're literally crazy at that point. And I went pretty crazy. I went out there and I went on started doing a string of armed robberies. I committed 7 armed robberies, a burglary, and went up obviously in the grips of the law. This is somebody who'd never been in trouble. So 40 years, I'm looking at going to jail probably for the next 20 to 40 years, which is basically the amount of years I was facing when I got arrested. Each one of those armed robbery charges counts as a 5 to 20 year sentence. So I was blessed when I got in front of the DA. The DA saw that I had a college education and that I had not really been in any trouble. I had a couple DUIs along the run, along that thing, which I really just blew them off. Like, oh, everybody drinks and drive. I just got caught. That was pretty much my attitude. And so I had 3 DUIs prior to that, but other than that, no real trouble. And I don't consider a DUI, like I said, real trouble. Anybody can get one. A lot of people drink and drive. I'm not saying it's right by any means. People get killed doing that. I was blessed that I've never hurt anybody during any of this, thank God. And that was one of the reasons that I'm even in front of you speaking today. But the district attorney decided that it was better for me not to be in prison for a long period of time. I did do a year in jail on State Road. Which I'll get into in a second, which was a very earth-shattering experience, if to say the most. And but they gave me a deal of 11.5 to 23 months. I did 11.5 months on state road, and I had to do a 5 years probation, which I'm continuing now through 2019. So basically, if I get into any kind of trouble, I go back and face those charges and can face a pretty long prison time. So this is coming from a kid who graduated with honors from college, you know, did the right thing in his whole life, and then got involved with some heavy drugs that, you know, I couldn't control. So, and like I said, I'm saying this not to scare anybody, but just let you know that, you know, and it can progress quick. I mean, I started out just smoking a joint and drinking a beer just like anybody else in high school does along the way, and that's where, you know, it's dangerous. The reason the drinking age is 21 is for a reason, because we're not at this age able to handle it or know what you're doing, and that's where you know, the trouble can really get out of control later on in life. You won't even see it coming, I said, until it's too late. I'm hoping that none of you will ever experience some of the things that I've experienced along the roads. There's a lot of things that I cannot share about my story that is just not appropriate for a high school class. Those are things that's between myself and God. But, you know, so like I said, I got out of jail in 2013, which is about, I guess about 18, 19 months ago. You're good? Okay. I don't know what that was.
It was the alarm because Sergeant Yeager's up.
Oh, is that okay? I'm sorry. Anyway,
Yeah, it was a good timing.
so like I said, I dedicate myself now to trying just to deliver a message that, you know, be careful with some of the decisions that you make, because I mean, the decisions you make now at this age will affect you the rest of your life. I'm now, with all my education, all that college I did right now at this point is wasted. There's nobody anywhere in corporate America that will hire me with, you know, with two F1 felonies for, you know, which is what I was finally charged with. They dropped, I had 64 charges against me when I was arrested. A multitude of felonies, you know, gun charges and whatnot. So they, all the charges were dropped, except for 2, which was a good deal. That's a good deal in order to go into drug treatment. And I'm not saying it's easy. I've had I've had 2 relapses since I've been out of jail in the last, was it 18, 19 months. Drug addiction, once it overtakes you, is not easy, and it will haunt you for the rest of your life. You know, I watched it kill my brother. It killed my father, and it still didn't deter me. It's killed a multitude of my friends, you know, and family members throughout the years. So, you know, just I don't know where, you know, what it is that's gotten you into any of these classes here or to this into the education program, but you know, it's never too late to turn back. You know, and in order to start making the right decisions. And you know, it's I hate to see kids. You know, I mean, I remember sitting in your seats, you know, 20-some years ago, and having speakers like this, you know, come into Philadelphia and talk to us, and it didn't deter me. And I thought, you know, hey, it's never going to happen to me. And that's, you know, especially in your teen years, you have that, you know, that holier than thou attitude that, you know, nothing can touch me. You know, until you get that bad bag of dope that, you know, it's got more fentanyl and you die on the first, you know, the first hit of it. You never know, especially when you're buying on the streets nowadays. There's a lot, you know, it's all about money, and so there's just a lot of dangers out there that, you know, that can honestly can take you out. So, but like I said, I went into behavioral health, and that's my goal now is just to try and help people, you know, to maybe make better decisions in their lives. Addiction can be overcome. As far as active addiction, you can. There's lots of support systems out there. There's lots of support you guys can get in school, which I didn't even know about back, you know, when I went to school. I don't know how much the teachers press that nowadays in school, but if you need help, it's no shame in asking for help. Because had I asked for help a long time ago, I probably would never landed in prison. Lost, you know, many years of my life. You know, I've been battling with this. I say the last 9 years has been what I would call my battle. That was where the rug got pulled out from under me, to where I was no longer able to control my addiction. And you know, so I just don't want to see anybody in this room go down that road as far as making some of the wrong decisions. I don't know what level of partying anybody does in this room, and that's between, you know, yourself and hopefully somebody maybe can help ask for help here in the school. But just be careful, because like I said, nobody knows what causes addiction. We're not sure of it yet. They know they've linked some of it to genetics. Some people are just predisposed. This is considered a behavioral health issue, and it will, you know, it will surface in different people's lives at different degrees. But you don't know if you're going to be the one. You said, you know, we may not wake up the next morning, and that's So that's where we're at as far as that. Now, let's go back to where I'm being in jail. I don't know if anybody here's ever been locked up or probably never been locked up at an adult facility, that's for sure. But State Road was definitely not a pleasant experience. Here I am, a corporate guy, never really been in any trouble, walking into the armed robbery charges. I was considered a high risk, so basically I was put in with some of the worst of the worst. I was in there people who were attempted murders, people who shot other people. This is definitely not the environment that I chose to be in. Living conditions in the jails are absolutely horrendous. It's nothing like what you see on TV. They're not clean. There are roach and mice infestations like you would not believe. You might be sleeping and have a mouse or roach or both in your bed at the same time. Food is just god awful. I've literally seen meals come out of the kitchen with feces in them from mice. This is the Philadelphia prison system. I don't know what it's like up here, and I probably won't ever find out. But the conditions are horrible. My third week in there, I was stabbed in the head and in the leg, literally over opening my window in the cell. My cellie and I got into a fight, which is a whole other story. But I mean, those are the kind of things that will happen to you in prison. I've seen people literally get stabbed in the neck and get killed in jail over a little 60-cent soup, over commissary being stolen. People steal from you. There's fights all the time. There's certain prisons on State Road that the older prison, like the House of Corrections, the halls are so long, they're probably, we'd say maybe 100 yards long or so, Joe? Yeah. You can't even see the end of it. The guards are going to be on one end, and you can be literally getting killed at the other end, and nobody will even know it until it's too late. So I suggest, legal system-wise, it's not someplace you want to be. Those were the longest 11 months of my life. There was a positive side to that, though, is had I not gotten arrested, I probably would be dead. Because I was literally on, and I said I was in psychosis, and I was on a suicide mission at that point. I really didn't care. Had somebody try to stop me, I don't know what would happen. If I would have shot them, shot myself, who knows? That was just where my mind was. That's, you'll never realize it until you get to that point in your life where you just literally can't see any hope. That's the worst part of addiction. When you get to that point, you literally cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I really thought there was no better way to live, and that's really pretty much where I was at. And I was just going to run until I couldn't run anymore. And it's sad to say, looking back now, the way I feel today is because I feel pretty good, about myself and where I can do and who I can help, and maybe I can stop people from making those poor decisions. And even if you've made some mistakes now that you regret. There's no shame in that. We all do that. I mean, it's just part of life. We're going to make poor decisions. I still make poor decisions. I mean, some poor decisions in the last couple of weeks. But it's all about how you react to them. They always say it's 10% of what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. That's pretty much how you do it. So you can turn those negatives into positives. I said, jail to me was actually a godsend at one point. I mean, the stabbing and stuff and the conditions were horrendous. Would never want to live like that. But as far as stopping me and dead in my tracks and allowing me some time to get my head together, I couldn't ask for a better way to do it, as far as I'm concerned. So, in that respect, a lot of people say, you got arrested. I say, no, I got rescued. And that's pretty much where I was at with jail.
Jason,
sure.
What was the turning point for you? Was there intervention? Was someone involved in turning you around, or was it something in your own life, in your own private life, that turned you around at your lowest point?
At my lowest point, jail was what turned me around. I would have to say without a doubt. There were people in my life that were trying to help me, but I just wasn't ready for help. My wife had me, she stuck by me through 2 rehabs, but that just didn't work. That's something another issue I didn't discuss. I've been in 13 rehabs along the way. That was 12 of those were prior to jail. One I was stipulated to go to after jail. So it's not even about rehab. I found a better connection when I came back out and started really taking a look at me. And I don't know if this may sound crazy, but drugs aren't the problem. Drugs are the solution. That may sound crazy. Let me explain exactly what I mean about that. A lot of us do things or have feelings inside ourselves that we can't, for some reason, can't cope with, and we use drugs in order to cover that up. And that's why I say that they become the solution. And The real problem lies within us. There's something inside of me and any other addict out there, and they'll tell you the same story if they really finally admit that they're an addict. The problem is in their thinking and with the way they cope and deal with their feelings. You know, and I had a lot of, I said, my mom's still behind me. She's 83 years old. She still stands behind me, you know, trying to help me. She doesn't understand it. She never will understand it. And that's where I'm hoping that maybe I can reach some of you guys who are maybe going down that road, because I understand where you're coming from. You know, I've lived that. There's people, you know, that's why I want to become a counselor, because somebody like me will understand what it's like to be sitting in a hotel room, literally with a gun put to your head, so high that you literally just want to die, but you don't have the balls to pull the trigger. And I've done that on several occasions. It's, you know, it's terrible that you'll get to that point, but I mean, and you may say, oh, this guy's crazy. Well, I wasn't crazy for the first 40 years, and that's where I went up, you know, on that last year. So, you know, I was a normal guy walking down the street. If you saw me right now, you'd never know I did time in jail or did 8 armed robberies. You know. Anybody pick me off to do that? No? Just, you know, just a normal, everyday guy, and this, that's where poor decisions and those kinds of things will lead you. You know, my support systems are great, and they'll help you. The best support you can get, though, is truly from someone who has been down the road. So it makes it a lot better, you know, if you get support from someone who can truly understand, or a trained professional as well. You know, people like the police. I mean, a lot of people, especially when we get into our craziness, think that the police is bad people. They're actually not. No officer will tell you that he wants to arrest anybody in this room, or anybody, period. They don't. You know, they'll try and help you first, but you know, sometimes there leaves no choice when public safety becomes an issue, or you know, those kind of decisions have to be made. But you know, there's plenty of sources out there. I said, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Those are great places you can go where you can go without anybody knowing you're going there. Nobody has to know your last name or where you're from or whatever, and you can talk to people and whatnot. Like I said, the schools, I don't know what the anonymity policy is with school. That's something I'm not familiar with. But yes.
So can you talk about what you were thinking when you did armed robberies and you pointed guns at people?
Sure. Well, I can remember anyway. I was literally thinking about just getting another one. At that point in my addiction, there was nothing more I wanted in my life than just to get another hit, and I didn't really care who I hurt or what I did in order to reach that point. It definitely takes a buildup of courage to do that. I mean, I remember sitting in the car, literally sitting there swigging on vodka and whatever alcohol I could find, and smoking whatever it was I was smoking at the time to get to that point. But get psyched up in order to go in there. I didn't want to hurt anybody, but I also knew in my heart that if anybody tried to stop me, they were going to get taken out. That was just the way it was. And I can't. And I'm not somebody who would. I'd never hurt anybody in my entire life. You know, that's just not me. And anybody who knows me, they always call me the gentle giant. So it's not my way at all. I've always been respectful of people. I said I've never hurt anybody. You know, I mean, it's not the schoolyard, you know, fights and stuff that we do as kids and stuff, just goofing around, but never really hurt anybody physically. But when you get to that point, it's a world I can't even really put into words. It's so out of, you're literally, and you feel like an animal, and you just really to lash out and just attack anything. But you just want that hit, and you don't care how you get it. Like I said, it was all about getting money and getting more drugs. And that was pretty much. That was where I was at. So, you guys have any other questions?
You talked about speed skating earlier. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. When I was a child, got into skating probably about 8 years old, 7 years old or so. I won the national championships at age 12 and 13. And at that time, roller skating. So I was a roller skater, by the way. Roller skating had never made it into the Olympics, but at the time back then, when I was skating back then, it was proposed to be in the Olympics, and the Olympic Training Center out in Colorado Springs and whatnot had built an Olympic training arena for roller skating. They said it was supposed to go in 1984 and then again in 1980, but it never made it in. But I spent time out with the training with the world team out there. I would have been in the Olympics had it ever made it in there. Great time of my life, you know. I mean, without a doubt, it was a very fulfilling thing. It was one of the things I did to my best. I said I was an athlete, you know, pretty much throughout my whole childhood. Even with all the partying I did, I still always went to the gym. And my wife and I, until my mid-30s, I was, you know, an athlete. I used to live at the gym. You wouldn't know it now. I got a little bit extra baggage now, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, it was a very wonderful time of my life. You know, I wish I could go back. Wish I could go back and know what I know now, because I would never. At age 15 was when I first touched cocaine. You know, that's another. It was introduced to me by a girl I was dating at the time, 15 years old. This was how. And that girl today is dead. You know, she died from she actually died from a heroin overdose.
You had talked about the first time you freebased it. How long from that point did you see your wife? What happened in that period of
I
time?
that part out. My first hit, my wife didn't see me for 9 weeks, and I blew $27,000 along that run. So, that was just one hit. I had no idea. I had snorted cocaine for 20 years and never had any idea the level of addictive to that first hit. One hit, and I was gone for 9 weeks. My wife reported my car stolen, me missing. You know, so that is how intense that freebasing cocaine is, without a doubt. And it's probably one of the hardest drugs to kick. So,
What's freebasing?
Freebasing is when you turn powder cocaine, you basically cook it with water and baking soda, and it turns it into a rock, and it makes it, you're smoking it. You're not actually smoking it, you're atomizing it. When you hit it with heat, it atomizes, similar to using an inhaler.
Like a vapor, pretty much?
It's turning it into a vapor. You're not actually burning the cocaine. People think you're burning the cocaine, you're not. If there's anything being burned, it's an impurity that's in the cocaine. When you freebase it and cook it yourself, the only thing that's coming out of the water is cocaine. So, but it's 100% pure. They call it crack for the fact that you're cracking out all the impurities. That's how this street name crack came about. You're cracking out the impurities that are, cocaine mostly nowadays is a lot of coke, but when you cook it, all that's coming out is straight up cocaine. And the rush is second. It's unbelievable. That's all I can say. I can't even put it into words. So without a doubt, but it's highly addictive. Like I said, I went one hit. I was gone for 9 weeks. I said my wife didn't see me for 9 straight weeks until she had cut off my money supply. And I had to come home pretty much. So, but yeah, it was a horrible time. It's been a horrible battle, and I said I still battle with it today. It's not easy. I mean, without a doubt. It's, you know, and I think I battle with it probably because I've been in leadership positions my whole life. I've been, you know, an area director for restaurant chains. I've been, you know, in management for most of my life, and I'm used to being the go-to guy, and I struggle with the fact that I can't control this. I've been a success at everything I've done except for recovery, and I still battle with it today. And that's what's really sad, you know, and it's still struggles. I just had a relapse a month ago. You know, it was only 10 days, but it was 10 days of the debacle. It cost me my place and my job, and you know, I'm back in another program now. But you know, and it's all because I stopped doing what works. I mean, here's what's hard about recovery. Recovery, and this is the hardest thing that I'm struggling with. You know, and I'd say probably most addicts coming in will struggle with is that you have to surrender. And I keep taking my will back. I keep surrendering, knowing that I need to be in these meetings and to be around these people and to do things. And there's no better feeling than when, and hopefully you'll never get to this point, but when you help another addict, say for myself, and I go to a meeting and I see that new guy coming in off the streets who's literally probably got 24 hours or less sober, and helping him get himself together, it's a feeling that is second to none. Just like this is medicine for me. I don't come out here, you know, I mean, trying to just save lives. This helps me as well. I mean, it's a two-way street. And hoping that maybe this message will save it, even if it saves one life, or maybe you take the information and you go get your family member who's sick and suffering. You know, it is a chain reaction where it can help. But that's a feeling that's, like I said, second to none, and that's where you know, I enjoy you know, trying to help other people. But I struggle with it. I mean, without a doubt, it's a hard road. You have to accept that it's going to be a lifetime battle. You're never cured from addiction. You're just in abstinence. You know, you're always, I mean, people who are addicted to drugs are generally addicted to other things as well. Whether it be sex, music, whatever it may be. Addictive behaviors, almost every person has some type of addiction. You know, shopping, you know, spending money, it depends what it is. You know, so you're going to struggle with that. We as addicts have become extremists, and we take everything we do to the extreme. Some good, some bad. You know, I bury myself in work. I've become a workaholic as opposed to, you know, a drugaholic or alcoholic. And that's where I tend to fall off. And I stopped doing, I struggle with balance in my life. This is something Joe and I were talking about on the way up here. You have to have a balance. You And that's something that he teaches us in the Wings program, is that, you have to, be involved with your church and community service and hobbies and work and family and have a general balance of all that stuff and keep that balance. If you tend to drift off in the extreme of any one of those, you're setting yourself up, if you are considered an addict, for failure. And that's where I still struggle. I try, I stop working. When I work on the inside, I do well. When I work on the outside, I don't do so well.
Number one reason you take drugs?
To numb myself.
To numb yourself.
Yeah, from things that, that I still haven't dealt with, without a doubt.
What advice would you give anyone here who's being influenced by a friend, or maybe even a parent as a role model who is doing drugs?
Wait a minute, I don't understand what you're saying.
What advice would you give someone here who may be influenced by peer pressure or a friend,
Peer pressure, that's
or
right.
even a parent who's under the influence?
I mean, if it's a parent or somebody, I would ask that you maybe reach out and see what if they want help. Peer influence is what got me where I'm at, without a doubt. I wanted, even though I was an extremely, I guess you would say, popular person growing up, I still wanted to fit in, without a doubt. And peer influence is what got me using. It's what got me to take my first hit of marijuana. It's what got me to take my first beer, and got me to do my first line of cocaine. And take my first pill and my first acid trip and mushroom and all the other drugs that I've done since, over the years. So, you have to make the decision for yourself. I mean, just remember, with every decision you make, there's a consequence, whether it be negative or positive. And a string of negatives is probably going to lead you into some serious trouble. I would say definitely try and be strong. Walk away. Find another circle of friends. I mean, I can tell you all the cliches you probably would read in a textbook, but it's it's about what you do with it. Like I said, I wish there was that magical formula where I could give you a questionnaire sheet and say, hey, you know what, you're going to be an addict, you're going to be an addict, you're not, you're going to be fine, you're going to be a great student. There's no formula for that. We don't know when it's going to happen. And if we did, then I would be a millionaire, or a billionaire, should I say. And it's sad that we don't have those tools. But addiction, they call it the most cunning and baffling disease on the planet, because it's the only disease that you constantly come back to and don't even care about the consequences of dying. If I told you that, let's just say you like Percocets, and I told you, and I gave you another pill, if I told you this pill was going to give you cancer, would you take it? It's going to make you feel really good, but you're going to die if you take it, right? You would take it, right? So why would you do cocaine, or why would you take Percocet? Those are the thoughts you got to think about, because literally drugs are going to kill you at some point. They're going to take years off your life. They're going to, and it's a horrible, slow, painful death. It really is, because I've been laced and I've lived it for, I mean, if you continue to go that road, I've been on my deathbed. I've been told twice, waking up, from an overdose and from a suicide attempt, that I was not walking out of the hospital. And I'm still here today. I also survived cancer when I was 18 years old. Another thing. They told me I wasn't going to survive that. So there's got to be God's will, something in that is, that's got me here. So. Yes.
Jason, can you tell us about your suicide attempt?
Suicide attempt, yes. That was in 2008. That's tough. That was pretty much at the point where I had lost everything. I got divorced that year, lost my home, car, job. Family wasn't speaking to me. I robbed my own mother at that point. I remember my mom had gone into the hospital. I was, again, at this time I didn't even know what I was in, but I was also going into cocaine psychosis at the time. My mother had gotten put into the hospital. I remember calling my brother. My mother went to the hospital. She was in the hospital. I broke into her house at that point. Not to rob her, though. I actually went there to die. I had gotten there, I guess about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I was told my mom was going to die, so that was my mom was my rock. So that was a tough one for me to swallow. My brother told me that, but she also told me that she didn't want to see me. So I broke into the house. I had some cocaine with me, and I found my mom for some reason. I have no idea why she did this, but she's allergic to opiates, which are basically Percocets. She had Vicodin, which is similar to a Percocet, but it doesn't have Tylenol in it, if anybody knows anything about drugs. It's also an opiate. She had several bottles of them in a room, which I don't even know why she had them in there because she doesn't take them. The prescriptions for her that were filled, she's had knee replacements and she's 80 years old. That's why the drugs were in there. But I took them out of there and I had, I drank a little bit of vodka and I dropped 75 Vicodin. And then thinking I was going to die. I went into one of the rooms in the house and I laid down and I was next to a clock. And 6 hours later I woke up. Extremely sick, but definitely not wanting to live at that point. And I'd already made up my mind, that it was time for me to go. I just couldn't say so. I just couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So when I woke up, I took another 100 Vicodin and I drank almost an entire fifth of vodka, and that was what left me in a coma. So I was found by my brother. I apparently sent a text message to my brother saying goodbye, and he figured out where I was at the house and came up there. My brother's the chief of anesthesia at Hahnemann Hospital. He knows what he's doing as far as to save somebody's life. So he came to the house and kept me alive until the paramedics got there and took me to the hospital. I spent 3 weeks in a coma. I'm sorry.
You took 175 Vicodin?
Correct. Yep. And they didn't even believe me at the hospital when I woke up until they had seen the levels of my, the amount of narcotics was in my system. So, it was help. And I still had, I literally should not be alive from the damage to my liver, but I still to this day have no liver problems, which is crazy. I just had a liver functions test done, 3 weeks ago when I was in the hospital. So I am a walking miracle, without a doubt. I don't know how. I don't suggest you try it because most people are not going to do that.
As we finish up, I'm going to pass out a form. It's going to distract them a little bit, I'm afraid.
That's fine.
We'll ask
Okay.
questions while you're doing it. Haley, will you pass it to this side? Yeah, he's got three there. I have a question.
Sure.
You said you have a brother. Excuse me, guys. You have a brother that you said died of a drug overdose?
Yeah.
And you have a brother who works at Hahnemann Hospital?
Correct.
I don't know, is there any way that you can tell us, you said your dad died of overdose, you've got some addiction, you have some success. Do you have any idea, was it their peers, was it, what, any ideas?
We've tried to figure that out, my mom and I and stuff, and we really haven't come to a conclusion on that. I don't know, we all grew up in the same home,
Yeah.
we went to the same schools, and it's kind of hard to, we don't know. I really wish I had that answer, because that's something that's driven my mother and myself crazy.
I think it's interesting, though, that if nothing else, it is possible to have a parent be an addict and still have someone in the
True.
family.
They say it's genetic. I mean, I struggle with the whole genetic thing. I think it's more of something in your environment, but I don't know, because like you said, there's people who have never been addicts and their kids are addicts, and it goes. There's no. I don't know. I have to see some data on that. I don't know. Yeah, but I said now we haven't figured that one out. I have no idea. My brother, I should say, my brother who's works at Hahnemann Hospital, the chief of anesthesia, he's in recovery as well. He struggled with some prescription drugs, but he did it. He was one and done. Like he went through rehab and he never looked back. And that was 10 years ago. So it's like I can't.
That's encouraging for us, if anyone is at that point, that they could be one and done.
Sure. Let me tell you something. Relapse is not a requirement. And I will say that. I mean, I've seen people, get it the first time. I've seen people never go to rehab and get it right. Rehab, it's kind of one of those things where I talked about surrender. You have to give up on the fact that you can control the substance. The substance you'll never control it. It's just impossible. You're dealing with something that has unlimited time and unlimited power. You can't control a drug. A drug is going to beat you up. It's like me getting into the ring with Floyd Mayweather. I'm going to get beat. And that's why the way you got to look at it. And that's where I struggle, because I've been in those controlling positions. I'm sorry, get it.
I was just gonna say, I don't even think rehab works. Because if someone wants to get clean, they're gonna get clean. But if they don't,
Without a doubt, rehab is. I would say one-time rehab. You should go to rehab once if you're struggling for 2
well, I mean, if
reasons.
you're going through like withdrawal or something, it helps for that.
Less detox. That's not even rehab.
Well, I mean that, yeah.
That'll get you through that. But rehab is good for two things, in my opinion. Like, don't take this to the bank, but just take it from me, what I've experienced. It gives you at least 30 days to get your head together. And it also gives you the knowledge of what you're dealing with. They will teach you about drugs and the things and stuff like that. But other than that, I agree with you. You'll get clean when you want to get clean. I've been in 13 rehabs and I'm still struggling.
I mean, like, if you admit yourself, you have a better chance. Like, the court says you gotta go to rehab, most likely, most of the time, you're not.
People are bitter about when they go to court. Yeah, 'cause I deal with that. I'm in an outpatient program now that a lot of us are court stipulated there. And I personally want to be there because I'm tired. I just am tired of this life. I'm looking, trying to find a better way. My sober times keep getting longer and longer. I've gotten close to a year on the streets. The longest time I had was when I was my confined jail and getting out. I made it to 18 months. I just had 7 months now, and I went back. I noticed my runs are getting shorter and shorter though. Like I just can't do it. It gets, It's amazing how fast you're literally back within 2 days. You're back to where you were, if not more than you were using. It goes that quick. You'll pick up right where you left off. It's not, and that's where a lot of addicts die, because what happens is they jump in right where they left off and they overdose and die. So that's very common with an opiate addict or whatnot. So. Anybody else have any questions? No. I woke up with very sick, and not remembering a whole lot. I had bits and pieces of memory. I remember what I was doing, like for the overdose and the suicide attempt, but as far as prior events, they came back within time. I had a very blank memory. I was very disoriented and very sick. But
so it was like when you fall asleep pretty much. You just thought it was like seconds past or something like that. You woke up and you had something.
Pretty much, yeah. It was exactly. It was scary. It is scary. Yeah, it's scary. I don't suggest anybody try it without a doubt. Yes.
Yeah, Jason, before we came here, we were talking about his last relapse, and what was the one thing that caused you to relapse? What was happening in your day-to-day of life?
Workaholic. Went right back to becoming a workaholic, and stopped doing what I was doing. I stopped going to church. I stopped going to AA meetings. Stopped seeing friends. I literally was working, coming home, drinking, and then the drinking eventually led me back to freebasing. Within a week and a half, I was back to freebasing again. And that lasted for 10 days, and I put myself right back in treatment. That quick, and that was only earlier this month. That happened on April 2nd. And by April 2nd, I relapsed, and April 12th, I was back in an inpatient. I'm not just in an inpatient. I'm in what's called a recovery house. It's a Christian-based recovery house. I'm not in an actual treatment, like a medical treatment program. With an outpatient program. The House of Adonai, which basically means the House of God. So it's in Richard Pratt. Anyways, wherever that area, in Philadelphia. So, I did really well when I was there. The owner, Bob Beckcamp, she came in and got me and took me to the hospital for detox, and then I went back to the house. I did well when I was there. It's a great program. It's very spiritual, and that's where I think I'm lacking. There's definitely a God out there, and every time I pray to God and I look in His hands and I stay under His grip, everything goes fantastic without a doubt. And as soon as I start pulling back, everything goes back. So I'm not leaving this. I'm at the program. It's a 1-year program. I left there at 7 months back in January, but this time I'm not leaving. I intend on staying for the full program and as well. Bob also has houses that are we call sober houses, basically men who completed the program and continue to work and pursue education and do whatever. I'm planning on staying in one of those houses. It's obvious that if I leave this realm and lose that balance, I'm probably due to fail again. So I'm getting too old and getting too tired of doing this. In order for me to deliver my message and help other people, it doesn't do any good if I continue to make wrong decisions myself. So.
Okay. We're going to close. We have like 5 minutes if anyone wants to ask individual questions privately. But did anyone have any last words? We go privately. What? All right. Get these forms. Okay, go ahead, John.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Not recovered, recovering. Yeah. So just be
That's good advice right there.
Just be careful about the decisions you make, guys. Like I said, I pray to God that no one ever even gets close to a story that I got. I mean, I know that's not my intent. And this is not something I'm bragging about. You know, it takes a lot of courage to come out here and share some of the personal stuff I share. So just be mindful that, you're playing with fire, and someone in here is going to die from drugs. It just statistically shows it. And or a family member or whatnot. Just it doesn't have to be you. Get the help and ask, and stay away. But, as you do those gateway drugs like alcohol and marijuana and whatnot, they start to become not enough, and you're going to search for something stronger and more effective, and that's where the dangers lie. I never heard of anybody dying from smoking a joint, but they will die from taking too many Percocets or
Every year, we have lost one person to death in the program, except for the last 2 years. No one this year or last year, but every year
That's good.
we've lost someone. So we've
moving in the right
lost-
direction.
Yes. So thank you.
Yeah.